We have a special guest today with us. It's former CIA agent John Kiriakou. I know I'm saying it wrong again, right?
Kiriakou.
Kiriakou. God bless America. All right, we got it. So he, among other things, he was imprisoned for revealing information about the CIA's torture. He spent some time in prison. He got a 30-month sentence, but he's also the founding member of the Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. He was a CIA analyst and case officer. He was the first U.S. government official to confirm in December 2007 that waterboarding was being used to interrogate al-Qaeda prisoners, which he described as torture. And guess what? The CIA awarded him with over 10 exceptional performance awards. So think about that. Plus, he's the author of several books, the most recent, Doing Time Like a Spy, How the CIA Taught Me to Survive and Thrive in Prison. Welcome, John.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, so there's so many things. I just want to, first of all, start off. When I saw you come on television and you admitted that the CIA had tortured people, and you said that Abu Zubaydah was only tortured once, and it turned out he got tortured 82 times.
Yeah, 83, as a matter of fact.
83. And my question was, what did they forget to ask him those first 82 times?
Yeah, seriously. That's my greatest regret from that ABC News interview back in December of 2007 when I said he had been tortured once. The reason I said he had been tortured once is because that's what had been reported through CIA channels. We didn't learn until 2009 when the CIA declassified its 2005 Inspector General's report that Mitchell and Jessen, the two contract psychologists who were actually carrying out the torture, were lying to headquarters to make it look like the torture was actually succeeding. So it was years before we got to that.
So now, why weren't those people who invented the program ever prosecuted? There was never even a court hearing, as far as I know. But we got people like you caught up. They did get Lindsey England. So what? I don't understand why they never prosecuted someone like that. What's your theory on that?
Yeah, that's the $64,000 question, isn't it? The bottom line is that they wanted to make an example of me, and I've gotten this from very senior CIA officers who, very quietly expressed their support. That word was put out inside the CIA in 2007. We're going to make an example of him, and if you want us to ruin you like we're going to ruin him, then go ahead and open your mouths. So the point really wasn't to send me to prison. The point was to ruin me personally and professionally, and then to use me as an example for others to make sure that they kept their mouths shut.
Okay. And did it work, you think?
No, actually, I think it didn't work for two reasons. First of all, we got Ed Snowden in the summer of 2013. Ed told the New York Times that he watched my case and he watched the case at NSA of Tom Drake, and that we inspired him to go public with his revelations. And then after Snowden, we have whoever it is, we don't even know who it is, who released the Vault 7 documents to WikiLeaks. We don't know if it's a CIA officer, a CIA contractor, or even if they're still at the CIA. But there have been two major whistleblowing cases after mine.
So now the Vault 7 people might not know. It released all the techniques that the CIA was using to listen in on you through your smartphones, through your TVs, through all that stuff. And people were freaked out about it, but then that went away really fast. Nobody talks about it anymore because I guess we already live in a surveillance state anyway. And so let me just ask you, as someone who worked in the CIA and now we live in a surveillance state, does it kind of blow your mind that we live in a completely unconstitutional time and no one seems to care about it?
Oh, right. I mean, this is what I actually lose sleep over this. Like, how is it that I'm the only person who cares about these issues? We're supposed to be a country of laws. We're supposed to be a country that's governed by a constitution. And certainly on my first day at the CIA, I put my right hand in the air and I swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and to protect the country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I couldn't have been the only person in the room that day who took that oath seriously. You know, we tell other countries that we're this shining beacon of human rights and of civil liberties and civil rights, and we insist that they behave in a certain way. And none of that is true. when we spy on our own citizens and we ignore the laws that we have in this country, all in the name of national security. It's just plain wrong, and I believe it's illegal.
Well, it just seems funny to me that everyone right now is running around going crazy because Trump might have met with Russian officials to get dirt on his political opponent. Meanwhile, we have bona fide war criminals that are going on daytime talk shows and being embraced by lefty hosts as some kind of, like, I'm talking about George Bush, like they literally lied us into an illegal war. Then they ordered, for my case, I think they ordered torture to cover up what they were doing because they wanted to get people to admit to stuff that they actually didn't do, which is the point of torture in the first place. What do you think about that?
I think you're exactly right. Listen, I got a knot in the pit of my stomach the other day when I saw these poll numbers saying that George W. Bush, who had something like 14% approval rating when he left office among Democrats, now has something like a 51% approval rating among Democrats. Like, are Democrats that
craven,
absent-minded that they forget that George W. Bush was committing war crimes? Did we forget that Dick Cheney was his vice president? I mean, I just can't believe that things have gotten so bad that we've somehow rehabilitated George W. Bush and the people around him. It makes no sense to me.
Well, we have Democratic leaders going on television like Nancy Pelosi on The View saying, I long for the days of George Bush. I mean, it's just because they find Donald Trump to be personally, disgusting, which a lot of people do. He's a very disgusting guy, but but that doesn't make me want to forget war crimes or an illegal war. And
you're absolutely right. And look at Michael Hayden. Hayden's another one, right? Hayden was the head of NSA when NSA began to spy on Americans. Then he became the head of the CIA at the tail end of the torture program. It was Mike Hayden that initiated and pushed the prosecution of Tom Drake, Bill Binney, Kirk Wiebe, and other whistleblowers at NSA. And then it was that same Mike Hayden who supported and extended the torture program at CIA. He became a part of the anti-Trump movement, and now he's on MSNBC on the Rachel Maddow show criticizing Trump, and he's somehow this hero of the left. In fact, he's not. He's a war criminal, and he ought to be treated as a war criminal.
I couldn't agree with you more. It all started with Hillary Clinton claiming, Henry Kissinger as her buddy. I think that was the beginning of the end for the left.
Do you remember both Hillary Clinton and every Republican running for president last year went to New York to kiss the Kissinger ring and get on their knees in front of him?
Yes.
It made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. They just named a building after him, I think, at Harvard. Anyway, no one was ever prosecuted except for you for torture. And what I say, because Barack Obama said all those torture crimes happened in the past and he was looking towards the future. Yes. And I was like, I guess so that's amazing. I guess everybody in prison committed their crimes in the future because the only place you can commit your crimes is in the past, right? So
yeah, right, exactly.
So the fact that Barack Obama did not prosecute any of the people who ordered torture or carried it out guarantees it will happen again, which is why people who Trump was appointing to be head of the CIA was saying he wants to do more waterboarding. That's because if you don't prosecute it, it guarantees it happens again. There's many reasons why you prosecute somebody. One is for justice. One is to restitution. One is also to make sure deterrence. It doesn't happen again. So now, would it be crazy of me to say that that program is still happening today in certain parts of the world?
I think that it happens one step removed. We're not allowed to use techniques now that are not delineated in the Army Field Manual, and that's great. Thanks to John McCain and Dianne Feinstein. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that the Congress could have done something a lot tougher and a lot stronger. They didn't, but that's okay. But what the CIA does now is they will grab somebody overseas, and then they'll send them to a country that still does torture and say, listen, here's a prisoner, don't torture him, wink, wink, and send us a memo and tell us everything that he says. Well, that way we just get these other countries, these friendly intelligence services, to do our dirty work for us, and then CIA officers go to Capitol Hill and say with a straight face, we don't have a torture program anymore.
So you're saying that is that part of the extraordinary rendition? That's where they take someone who they suspect has information. They send them to Egypt or they send them somewhere, maybe Jordan. Who knows where they send them?
Right.
And
Yeah,
then
who knows?
maybe they even send them to Bagram, right? In Afghanistan.
It's entirely possible. You make an important point too. You asked if that was extraordinary rendition. Yes, there's a difference between rendition and extraordinary rendition. If you're an Egyptian, let's say, and I'm in Pakistan, and I catch you, and you have no passport and no plausible explanation for what you're doing there, and the Pakistanis don't want you to stay in their country, and we send you back to Egypt, that's a rendition. That's perfectly legal. But if you're an Egyptian in Pakistan and I catch you and I send you to Morocco or Afghanistan or some secret prison in some country that nobody's even thought about, that's extraordinary rendition, and that is illegal. That's a violation of international law. It's a violation of the UN Charter, and no country should be doing it. In fact, we do it all the time.
So I make the case that we live in a lawless society. It's been that way for pretty much since Nixon didn't have to pay a price for what he did. We in the savings and loan, we put a few people away for that, but ever since then, it's nothing, right? We got a few people at Enron. Remember when that happened? But
Sure.
No one's paid a price for illegal wars, for torture, for war crimes, for crashing our economy and stuffing their pockets at the same time, for even laundering drug money. Like HSBC got caught, something like $700 million in drug money. They didn't prosecute anybody because they said it would be a shock to the system. So we live in a lawless society. No one's going to go to prison except anybody who goes against the establishment, like Trump. Ironically, it's
when you've got the Attorney General of the United States authorizing the sale of weapons to Mexican drug cartels, an operation called Fast and Furious, and then he says, "Yeah, my bad. Sorry about that. Probably shouldn't have done it." And then just everybody forgets about it. You know that there's a problem. Now, I actually understood President Obama when he said that he wanted to look forward, not backward, in that CIA officers were told during the Bush administration that this torture program was not actually a torture program, that it had been approved by the Justice Department and by the White House, and carrying it out was perfectly within the confines of the law. That was specious. It was wrong morally and ethically. But I understand if you're a CIA officer, you did it because you were told it was legal, move on. But there were CIA officers who murdered prisoners in custody. They were never prosecuted. What about CIA officers who threatened to kill the wives or children of prisoners in custody? That was not authorized by the Justice Department. So where's the justice there? Where are the prosecutions there? Well, there were no prosecutions. And that's why every CIA officer knows that when the national mood changes, maybe there's going to be another terrorist attack and Americans are going to be gung-ho to go crack heads overseas again, they know that they're going to be able to get away with a torture program at some point in the future.
That's absolutely 100% right. I can understand not prosecuting the people who stayed within the confines of the orders that they got, but there are lots of people who went farther than those orders too, which is
lots of people,
which is what you're saying, and they didn't even prosecute those people, right? So that's just crazy. And by the way, all right, don't prosecute the CIA people on the ground. How about prosecute the guy who developed it? How about prosecute the people who ordered it? How about nobody got it? So it's just crazy. Now let's move on to more towards today. By the way, the Barack Obama, he used he prosecuted more people using whistleblowers in journalism using
the Espionage Act.
The Espionage Act. Now that's crazy, and no one seems to make a big deal out of it. I say if Trump did that, people would be marching in the streets. Why do you think people?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Listen, Barack Obama, just because he says that he was the most transparent president in history, doesn't make it true. The Espionage Act was written in 1917 to combat German saboteurs during the First World War. Between 1917 and 2009, the Espionage Act was used to prosecute 3 Americans for talking to members of the media. Between 2009 and and the end of the Obama administration, January of 2017, 8 Americans were prosecuted under the Espionage Act for talking to the press. That's almost 3 times the number of all previous presidents combined. That's not transparency. That's exactly the opposite of transparency. In my view, Barack Obama was the enemy of transparency. He was the enemy of whistleblowers.
And so people still love to brag that he's the best president in my lifetime, even though everything he did, Bob Dole or John McCain would have did. He took Bush's wars, he expanded them from 2 to 7. He codified Bush's tax cuts. He made the banks bigger. Right. Yeah. He's the one who he let us. Now we can export fossil fuels, which is why we have pipelines crisscrossing the country. Now he opened the Arctic to drill. I mean, it's unbelievable what the guy did. Why do you think that's so? It seems like there's some kind of a trick being played, some mega trick. Mark
Halperin and John Heilemann, 2 political reporters, wrote a book called Double Down. It's a book about, it's a follow-up to an earlier book, but it's a book about the 2012 presidential election. And Obama agreed to sit for an interview in that book. And there were 2 quotes in that book that I thought were absolutely chilling. The first one, Obama just very matter-of-factly said, "I never said I was a liberal."
Yes.
Like the joke was all on us, that we thought he was a liberal, and, well, he never said he was a liberal. And the other comment was about the drone program, where he said that he never realized that he would be so good at killing people. One of my favorite statistics comparing Obama to George W. Bush vis-a-vis the drone program is that in George W. Bush's last month as president, he killed 2 people with the use of a drone. In Barack Obama's last month as president, he killed 426 people with drones. So how is Obama the champion of freedom and transparency? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I agree with you. That's a great, wow. I didn't know those stats. That's amazing. I'll just ask you this about, Barack Obama literally repealed habeas corpus when he signed the National Defense Authorization Act. Section 1021 says that all the government has to do is say you're a terrorist and they can throw you in jail without trial, right? So that repeals habeas corpus. Habeas corpus, I have to remind people, is included in the Magna Carta. So we've now repealed the Magna Carta. We are operating on a liberty view from somewhere around the 1100s.
Yeah.
And why do you think Chris Hedges says the reason why they did that, and the reason why when Chris Hedges won his court suit against the NDAA, that Section 1021, they reversed it the next day, and his theory was because they're already doing that. They're already locking up people in other places and not giving them trials. Do you think that's what's happening?
I actually do think that's what's happening. And we have no way of knowing it unless there's a whistleblower out there willing to talk about it. But Chris Hedges is right. I mean, this is a threat to the very fiber of our democracy. And I don't use those words lightly. This is us becoming a country that we should never want to become. I really believe that we're supposed to be this shining beacon of democracy and freedom. And I always thought that we were until we initiated this torture program.
The next live Jimmy Dore show is November 6th in Burbank, California, and November 12th in Portland, Oregon. Link for tickets right there.